and the greatest.
Someone look color. Someone look color. Someone look dash. Someone look color.
What's up, guys? I'm Silas Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. Today, guys, I'm going to be showing you some tricep movements that you may be doing incorrectly and showing you how fixing these tricep movements can help alleviate a lot of elbow pain and tendonitis. Because a lot of you have been asking, hey man, I get a lot of elbow pain when I do certain pressing motions. Is it because I'm locking out my bench, things like that? I've already addressed how that's not the case. Locking out on your presses for your bench overhead press is not more than likely what caused that. You're feeling it because of the built up scar tissue, but what that scar tissue comes from is gonna be what I'm about to show you guys right now. So the problem, guys, is when a lot of people do their tricep work, let's start with the press down, for example. They're way too tucked. That's the number thing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but I get real tucked so I can really feel my tricep. But the thing is, guys, that's not giving you any more tricep stimulation than being like this. So here's the thing. A lot of people, they get their arms nice and tucked like this, or like this, right? And they push down like this, boom. Boom, see how close my arms are to my body? Just like that. Versus letting the elbows flare out a little bit to this position, like this. See the difference? So right now, I'm doing it the correct way versus being like this, all tucked. Because what you have to understand is when you do that, when you put your elbows in that position, you're putting a lot of stress and pressure on the joint, on the tendons in that area. And you don't want to do that because that can cause damage and cause built up scar tissue and eventually develop into elbow tendonitis. And that's what's causing the pain. And then when you go get on bench press or overhead press and you do like a heavy load, that's gonna flare it up and aggravate it. And a lot of people get in the mindset, like I said, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to lock out, so they'll stop locking out just short to avoid the pain. But the thing is, you're not addressing the core issue, which is the positioning of your elbows. Because you guys have to keep in mind, when it comes to doing any type of weight movement, you have to think about real life application, things that we do in our everyday lives. When are you ever like this? Doing that is not natural. It's not natural for the joint to be like that. It's normal to be a little bit flared out. Now a lot of people feel like, oh, but I feel it more. What you're feeling is that in your elbow, not the tricep itself. And then also you want to keep in mind, guys, that when you're doing that, you're putting more focus on both heads other than the long head. You want more focus on the long head, guys, when you're doing your isolation work, just for the mere fact that that's the head that gets the least amount of stimulation during your presses, as I mentioned in the previous video. Whenever we're doing incline dumbbell press, whenever we're doing weighted dips, whenever we're doing bench press, the long head gets the least stimulation. It's still getting activated, like all heads on the tricep are activated, but it gets the least amount of stimulation, which is why you want to do things more like overhead movements. So for example, rather than doing press downs all the time, and preferably you can do this with the rope, but if you do overhead press movements instead, you're still working all heads of the tricep, but we're focusing more on the long head. Now, that's not to say that you can't do normal press downs at all whatsoever, because those do have excellent carryover to your bench press. And if your triceps are a lagging muscle group for you in general, then that's fine. But the problem is when you're already doing so much stimulation for that area with all your presses, and you come in and you do that and then you do it incorrectly, that's bad for the elbows. Now, the second thing, guys, and this is probably what's causing most of you like the most amount of pain, is skull crushers. A lot of you guys say that you're feeling in your elbows when you're doing skull crushers. Once again, that's because of how you guys are doing it. So a lot of you will get in position, right? And what you'll do is you'll, once again, elbows are really tucked. You guys see that? So this is my elbows normal. You get your elbows really tucked, then you come down to your forehead, and then you come back up. Boom. Just doing that one, guys, with this light weight, I'm already feeling that pressure in my elbows. Boom. Especially at the top. When I come up at the top, I feel it coming down. There's the pressure on my elbows coming to the top. Boom. And that's what's causing you guys a lot of pain. What you want to do, once again, don't be so tough. It's okay for the elbows to flare out a little bit more. And then instead of coming to your forehead, come behind the head. So what we're gonna do, get back in position, but instead of being tucked like this, I'm gonna let my elbows flare out a little bit, come back behind the head, and back up. 1. Behind the head, back up. 2. Behind the head, back up. 3. And what this does, guys, is give your triceps the exact same amount of stimulation, but once again, because I'm going behind the head, we're targeting that long head a little bit more, and because my elbows aren't so tucked, there's not so much pressure on the joints. It's working the muscles itself. Now, a lot of people, once again, guys, I've said this in so many videos, I don't understand why the argument that people always use for why they do things is, well, this bodybuilder does this bodybuilder does that. Guys, bodybuilders aren't exactly the model citizens for avoiding injuries. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. A lot of them, think about it, a lot of the advice they give you, oh, do this to avoid all these injuries, they only say that because they are dealing with all those injuries all the time. Once again, they usually aren't addressing the root cause of the issue. They're doing things like this because, oh, you can feel it. You can feel the burn, you can feel the pain. Guys, here's newsflash. Training should not be painful. And I'm not talking about like, you know, the burn you get in your chest if you're doing bench press. I'm not talking about like discomfort. A little bit of discomfort from like, you know, the fact that your muscle fibers are tearing, from the fact that you're feeling that burn, that's one thing. But actual pain, like when something legitimately hurts, that's your body's way of saying, hey, you're doing something wrong, stop. Like if I take a kid and put his hand on the stove and he's like, oh, it hurts, it burns, please stop. I'm not gonna be like, no, the pain is good for you, work through it. It's the same thing, guys. Like, and I know a lot of people have that mentality from like football, bodybuilding, etc. Like, hey, no pain, no gain. That's not how the body physiologically works. Pain is the way the body's telling you, hey, we need you to ease up, you're doing something wrong. And when you ignore that and keep going, that's how you cause injuries. When people keep getting all nice and tucked and doing all these press downs and all these movements and they're like, oh, I guess it's supposed to feel painful, it's supposed to hurt, that causes issues, that causes injuries. So you wanna make sure that you avoid things like that. And you know what? This wasn't planned, but while we're at it, let's go ahead and address another movement really quickly, just because it kind of goes hand in hand, guys, because most people, what they do is they either hurt like their elbows or they'll hurt their shoulders, right? So same misconception, dumbbell lateral raises, right? So the correct way to do it, and you guys have seen me do this in videos plenty of times, you know, there's a slight little bend in the elbows, we're bringing it up, boom, parallel, palms are facing the ground the whole time, right? So I'm not coming totally forward like a front raise, but I'm not coming complete to the side either, it's kind of right in the middle, right? Boom, 1, boom, 2, boom, 3. Now, what a lot of people will do is, what they'll do is they'll come up and they'll have their palms facing out like that. That's okay, that's not too bad, but here's what you definitely want to avoid. People will come up and they'll turn their pinkies upward because they feel like, oh, I'm getting a slightly longer range of motion. I'm feeling, oh, more of the burn in my shoulders. Guys, that's not the case. That's not something you want to do. What you're feeling is damage being caused in the shoulder joint. And what it is it's causing a crushing motion in that shoulder joint specifically. And it's because remember guys, for shoulders, it's a ball and socket joint. And what you're doing is crushing the glenoid a little bit. As you do that over and over, it causes damage to the point where you're gonna literally have to go see a physician for that, to get that fixed, to get that taken care of. You don't wanna do that, because the thing is guys, that's why you always want your palms facing the ground. When you twist your pinky up in that motion, that's not a natural movement. It's not something you wanna do. It's the same thing with upright rows. If you guys saw in my last deadlift focus video, when I was doing my upright rows, I stopped right here, right in my chest. Now, in actuality, upright rows may be a movement that most of you want to avoid altogether because it can cause impingement of the shoulders, even stopping right here. But coming to right here is going to get the chest plenty of stimulation without having to come all the way up here. When you come all the way up here, look, it's the same thing. Look, I'm doing lateral raises, pinky turned in, painful, right? If I do an upright row, come like that, same thing as far as where my pinky is, the positioning. It causes damage to the shoulder over time. You don't want to do that. If you're gonna do it, guys, there's variations. You can use dumbbells, for example. You can use dumbbells, we come straight up, boom, just to the chest, no higher than that, boom, boom. Or if you are gonna use a bar, like I said, stopping right at the chest versus coming all the way up here. That's the thing, guys. And like I said, upright rows, it's kind of a debate back and forth of, is the movement even worth doing? There are some certain situations where it can be a very beneficial movement so long as you're going about it correctly. But for the most part, I usually recommend that people don't do it just because most people, they're gonna come all the way up here and like, oh, but look, it's the full range of motion. You have to understand, guys, range of motion is very much determined by the movement pattern itself. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you make sure that, once again, quick recap, as far as your triceps, because that's what this video is mainly about, don't be so tucked. If you're too tucked like that, it's a lot of pressure on the elbows. With your skull crushers, don't be so tucked, come to your forehead, let your arms flare out a little bit, and come behind the head. Your triceps are getting the same amount of stimulation. If anything, the long head gets a little bit more work, which is good because it's usually the least developed head of the tricep, and you avoid that elbow tendonitis, you avoid that pain. Same thing with the lateral raises, proper form to avoid pain in the shoulders, and just make sure, guys, that at the end of the day, go based off more than, oh, I saw this big jack dude doing this, so I'm gonna do this. You gotta have a better mentality than that, guys. You have to understand to look at the things biomechanically and physiologically and see, hey, this is causing me pain. I need to address it and figure out why it's causing me pain. That's it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you did not enjoy it, leave a comment down below, letting me know what I can do to get better. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch y'all later.
I am the greatest.
Someone recover!